I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, June the 4th. And we're just working through numbers. We know we got big supplies of these fat cattle that are ready right now, but with outstanding harvest chain speeds, outstanding demand both domestically and for export, we are working through these numbers, and our fat cattle ended up last week actually on a positive note. And who would have thought we'd have saw that right when we get into the big glut of this wall of cattle we've been talking about all spring. But look at the board for last week. August live cattle ended the week at 103.62, and that was $1.32 higher for the week. Your June spot fat cattle 104.90, up a quarter for the week, and that would have been a $5 or more basis compared to what the fat cattle market ended up being on cash. Feeder cattle 146.32, that was up $1.40 for the week. And you go out for the next several traded months, and it's less than a 30 cents difference on your feeder cattle contracts that are being traded for the rest of the year. So unless we see a big change up in our inputs, feed costs, how the crop does this time, we're not going to see a whole lot of difference as far as the board's concerned as what your feeder cattle market's going to be. And up here traveling in the Midwest this week, in the heart of the Midwest and northwest Missouri, and I tell you what, things are looking good. They had a real open, dry winter with not much snow and no rain all winter long, and they got short on pond water. They got real short on hay stocks. But and a lot of them had to sell some cows, just like they did in many parts of the Midwest, which is going to really add to what I'm talking about being a big price recovery for our calf market maybe a year from now. But you know, things are really shaping up, though. We've had some rains up in the heart of the Midwest the last couple of weeks, and it was real timely. The crops are looking outstanding. The corn's got a good stand on it. Beans are getting started good. The hay crop is going to be a little bit short, but for the first cutting anyway, but it's fairly thick, but it's not going to be a lot of tonnage on this first cutting of hay. But on the grazing, a lot of times in this part of the country, the grazing outruns the cattle early in your grazing season there, and then the grass kind of gets coarse and the cattle are not real wild about eating it, but they still got a lot of good tender grazing. They're staying ahead of it, and cattle are getting good gains out of it. So really looking good up here in the Midwest for this time of the year. And if you look at our corn crop, how it's running, we're way ahead of the game for last week compared to how your crop was looking. But you look at your fat cattle market for last week, we're getting some normalcy back into the market, as we're not seeing quite as much of a push to do that 2 to 4 week delivery stuff, and selling more cattle on your immediate current delivery as we're getting right into the spot month on our June live cattle. Our basis is narrowing down, and I'm not sure how much lower that market's going to get, and I think most of your sellers are feeling the same way, so they're not fearful that the market's just going to be pulled completely out from under them. They still want to go in there and kind of sell cattle, you know, just for immediate delivery and try to stay ahead of this market. But through Thursday last week, 32,000 head had sold in the 5-area feeding region, plus we had a good swath of cattle sell on Friday, so we're going to have more of a normal trade for last week on the volume. Your Southern Plains sold at 110. Your Northern Plains live sold 111 on Friday, so that 110 to 111 live market would be steady to a buck higher than the previous week. Your dress sales in the Northern Plains 177 to 178, that'd be a full dollar higher. So we're starting to get back into a normal trend of what our weekly fed cattle market is going to be. We talked all last week about having record exports on our box beef, not last week but the previous week as it come out, and a lot of that business being done overseas. And that's great, because we're getting into a time where the media is trying to tell you that nobody wants to do business with the United States because Trump's got them bent out of shape, but you sure can't tell it on the beef exports, because we've got as good as we've ever had there. Your actual slaughter data that come out for the week that ended May the 19th showed that we had an even bigger slaughter than what we thought, and actually the biggest steer and heifer slaughter we've seen in 7 years, with a lot less slaughter space than what we had at that time. We've closed a lot of these plants, but the ones that they do have open, they've got them firing on all cylinders and running over 90% capacity. Your real-time index on Beef Market Central for your 800-pound steer at the end of the week last week was at 137.15, $2.83 higher than the previous week. Cash feeders in your auctions that got going again about Tuesday and sure on Wednesday were $2 to $5 higher. You look at some outstanding sales on a market that is not on Cattle Market Central, but we'd like to change that. But at Fort Pierce, South Dakota, they had a big sale, over 12,000 head of cattle. I had a guy there sending me information, had a load of black steers, weighed 821 pounds, bring 158.75. Lighter end off of them weighed 743 at 168.50. Then a fancy load of stalker type steers weighing 619, bring 183.50. That was in Fort Pierce. You get back down into reality, kind of closer to you, a lot of your commercial feedlot areas. Fort Scott, Kansas. You can watch on DV Auction every week on a Saturday sale that they had over 2,200 head on Saturday. Market appeared $4 to $8 higher, and a good sale there. And look at all these loads they featured at Fort Scott, Kansas, including in there is a load of 857-pound steers, bring 136.25. That's your feeder flash for Monday.